session. So just to make you aware of that. Martin, if you want to go into the next slide. So just a bit of housekeeping. If you do have any technical issues, contact me in the chat and I'll do my best to help you. Already mentioned that we're recording. Any questions that you do have throughout, please put those into the chat as well. We will also be sending some resources out post tonight's event. So don't worry too much about jotting down loads of notes. We want you to participate as much as you can, but you'll get the resources after, and we're hoping for it to end around 8:15 p.m. So hosts and presenters this evening, that's myself there in the top left-hand corner. I'm one of the club developers and work in the London and South East team. We've got Martin, who's the main host this evening, and we've also got Will Harris joining us and Richard Ellis as well, who are also going to have some really great content for you.
Cool. Well,
over to you.
I'll take over from here, Sally. So thanks very much indeed, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening on, I'm sure it's a glorious evening out there, so we'll be brief and to the point, but we've got quite a lot to get through. Hopefully you'll be able to take some thoughts and some ideas back to your clubs. There'll be, I'm sure, some things that you may have heard before and so on. So fingers crossed that there'll be something, even if it's just one or two snippets that you think that's a great idea, I'll take that away. You can see the agenda there, the what and the why. We've got the RFU's approach and we'll be taking you through that. Bringing it closer to home, we've got an example from a level 9 club who we'll talk through in a bit of detail. The Rugby Business Network, that will be Richard talking about Preston Grasshoppers and some work they do there. And then I'll finish off with some considerations, a simple 6-point plan that we've, fair to say, we've stolen from Newcastle Falcons and the guys up there, but it's a really nice, easy resource to have. And then, as Sally alluded to, we'll have some questions and answers, and we'll just share where the resources are. So, without further ado, let's move into the what and the why, and let's have a little think about why people get involved in sponsorship. So, put a quote onto your screen there. It's a very dry quote. Sponsorship is a business relationship. Very, very, very cold. The word sponsorship is an interesting one nowadays. And so moving on from that, this is what we encourage you guys to think about. It's a two-way partnership. And really look at this as a one-team approach. As I've said, your successes are their successes on or off the pitch and across all the teams. The same is true for their business successes. Make sure that you celebrate with your members and social audience. And just giving you a little bit of background on myself, I've been at the RFU nearly a year now. Prior to that, I spent 18 years in automotive management. And the last 6 of which I headed up the partnerships for Mitsubishi Motors, which included England and Scotland. It included England netball, a number of clubs, as well as equestrian events. And it's something that we always work very, very hard on to make sure it was a two-way partnership. So if one of our partners did well, we shouted about it. And likewise, we'd encourage them to shout about whenever we had successes. So it really is that partnership. So whilst we use the word sponsorship throughout the presentation tonight, please do try and think of it in that partnership terms. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hand over to Sally, who's going to give our first question. So Sally, over to you.
So what I want us to think about is, why do companies or brands get involved in sponsorships or partnerships? So if you want to pop those comments into the chat for me. I'm not sure if people are able to come off mute, so we've got brand awareness there.
Anything you can think of, guys. Yeah, put them into the chat rather than unmuting Paul. It's just easier if they are that way, because then we can sort of control as people are making comments. And if you make your chats to everyone, good point, David, access to database. Very often you hear the phrase now, data is the new gold. Sounds a bit extreme, but many brands do see that. And I think that's an important point we'll touch on later. Okay, excellent. So we've got a few questions later on. We've also got some polls that we'll launch with you as well. So when we do that, I'll hand over to Sally, and Sally will take you through those each time. But good for you to get back. And Chris, thank you for that final comment. Give back to the community. That idea of purpose-led partnerships is a good one, and I think it's something we want to think about, and we'll touch on later in the slides. Okay. Sorry, David, I can just see you put in as well, yeah, raised profile in the community, which is fantastic. So a bit of theory. And so you can see there that basically this is the sort of theoretical element behind it all of why do people get involved in sponsorships. And you can see that it engages a lot of people about things they care about, whether it's a passion or a purpose, and that goes to something we just touched on there of that community. If you want to do something good for the community, then that's purpose driven. Why do they do it? Because it brings to life what companies and brands stand for in a different context. Nothing like partnership. Partnership and sponsorship can work in the same way. You try any type of other media mix, marketing mix, and it doesn't really work. It can really connect your customers or potential customers, and it gives you an opportunity to reach new audiences as well, particularly as we know our clubs have large memberships if you've got minis and juniors and so on, and therefore your members can be quite vast and varied. And it provides that the company with a brand and a toolkit of assets and benefits, so they get that as part of when they sign up to be a partner with you. And as I said, that adds to the marketing mix. So that's the sort of theoretical side behind it. So we're now going to jump onto our first poll, and I'll hand over to Sally, and then I will launch the poll so you can see it. So Sally, I don't know if you'll introduce that, and then I'll launch it.
Cheers. Thank you, Martin. So first poll is going to be thinking about where does your club source sponsors and partners. So if Martin can launch that poll for me now. Thank you. You can, I think, select multiple answers as well on this one. See, I've got some answers coming in now, which is brilliant. Almost there, Martin.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, guys. I've just realised the poll I've launched is the wrong poll. So bear with me. I've just realised it's dropped on the wrong one. So they're not in order. So I apologise sincerely. There we go. There we go, guys. In case you're all thrown by that one, I apologise. I thought they were in numerical order, but they weren't. So where do you get your sponsors from?
Well, we've got answers coming in now. It's 9 out of 12. Couple more to just answer. And then we can share those results with you all. So we've got David that can't currently see the poll. That's fine. David, if you wanted to write things in the chat of where you currently get your sponsors from. So we've got things like friends and family of current players, members, local businesses, players, members, national, international businesses, existing sponsors, and social media, and also ad board outside the club, and then any other if you wanted to add it into the chat. Apologies that you can't currently see it.
Okay, so that's 10 out of 10 answered. David, not sure why you can't see that. Zoom does have its weird and wonderful inner secrets, which we're all still trying to work, despite having used these virtual platforms for many, many months now. So we'll see if hopefully that next time it can pop up. It may be that the polls popped up on a separate screen, or depending on the device you're on. If you're on a laptop or a iPad, it may well that it pops up in a different place. So if that is the case, just pop your comments into the chat. So we'll end that poll there, and I'm hopeful that you can share. I can share those results, and I'll just put those onto the screen now. So as you can see, you've got friends and family, which is the largest, followed by the local businesses and ex-players and members and existing sponsors. So lots of existing relationships, social media, and then interesting an ad board outside the club. Cool. Okay, so I will drop that out. And Sally, just double check with you that that has now disappeared off the screen. Cool. So the RFUs approach. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Will, and I'll stop sharing. So Will will take over from here, and he'll tell you a little bit about the RFUs approach. So Will, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. And let me just quickly work out how to share it. 2 seconds. So hopefully that's working for you guys. Could you give me a thumbs up, Martin, if that's
great, Will.
Great. Okay, thank you. So by way of background, I work at the RFU in the commercial team. I work in the partnership development team, to be precise. And essentially my role is to go out and find new partners of England Rugby and what that looks like, and sort of tailoring what we can do to support their objectives across the whole breadth and width of what we've got to offer. So I'm just going to talk about sort of 5 steps that we follow, but I think actually these steps are quite relevant for a sort of community club to potentially adopt. I think it clearly depends on your ambitions for your scale, of the size of the club, what you've got access to, etc., etc. But actually the key point here from my perspective is actually how much time you have to invest into finding new partners, and sometimes that might be incredibly limited. So hopefully these are a few steps that could be followed, a few bits and pieces that you can just sort of rip straight out of here to hopefully make your life a little bit easier with finding new partners. And to Martin's point, very much a two-way relationship. We try and steer clear of the word sponsorship and try and stick with partnership. It's never quite that easy. So the 5 steps in front of us really is that identification of assets, identification of potential partners, understanding of their objectives, tailoring the proposal, and then contracting and onboarding. I'm just going to go through, excuse me, each of these steps in a little bit more detail. So that first piece around identification of assets, at England Rugby, we have a sort of almost an armory or a golf bag with golf clubs in it of sort of different bits and pieces. And this enables us to kind of pull different levers depending on the brand's objectives. But it's just really important just to have that clear idea of what you've got to offer, so that when you are having those conversations, you can then just sort of tailor these and pull these out and sort of understand which ones to sort of apply to the branding or the partner in question. So quickly, we sort of look at that branding from a physical perspective. So is it that pitch side hoarding? Is it the clubhouse railings? Could you do post flag protectors? Is there sort of match day programs that you run? Is there anything in central hospitality that you could be doing just to raise a bit more awareness of that brand and their relationship with you, that gives them a bit more visibility and sort of helps them to get that sort of brand awareness piece that some of you identified earlier of why people partner? The second piece is that digital aspect, and whether you've got the capability with your social media platforms or club websites, potentially just again to sort of demonstrate that relationship, provide a bit more information about the brand, and again just get that visibility of the brand. That sort of branding piece is very much to just drive that awareness of the brand. Then there is a use of imagery and match footage. I think to Martin's point earlier, we live in sports marketing, and the power of sports marketing is all about emotional storytelling. And therefore, if a brand can use player imagery or match day footage to help drive cut through on whatever channels they're marketing, it helps stand them out from the crowd. And that's where some people use, you might see brands that we have or partners we have using England Rugby imagery of Maro Itoje, Ellis Genge, or Sarah Hunter, or various sort of different players from across to drive that cut through and give them a point of difference on how they market. The next piece is that match day hospitality. Clearly, at the stadium, there is all sorts of bits of hospitality, but I'm sure within the grassroots and community clubs, you have elements of hospitality, and that provides a phenomenal networking opportunity, not only for your partners, but actually, you know, they can host their current prospects, they can develop new leads, and actually having that ability is a nice touch for people to bring sort of their clients to. There's obviously a ticketing piece, potentially what could be done just at your own matches, those bits and pieces, just to sort of incentivize people to come along. They might be running local competitions, etc., to help. There is a business networking events. I know that Richard's going to be covering a bit of this a bit later on, so I won't harbour the point, but what is your ability as a community club to bring people together and use that power of sport and emotion to bring people together under the business guise, to help drive those relationships? And you know, there's some compelling case studies that can be driven from this. The next piece is just player and coach appearances. You know, is there an element of what these guys can do to help create a bit of cut through for various events, photo shoots, interacting with various opportunities that might be going on. Already identified again was the database point a little bit earlier about that CRM, that customer relationship management piece. You know, brands would like to partner with England Rugby because there is obviously a distribution that we can access our audience, that first party data. Do you have a similar setup where you can email your members, so long as they opt in and they agree to all these bits and pieces you'd like to pass on? Again, just to give a platform to your partners to engage with your audience. There is a business opportunity here. I understand that community clubs will have a number of different expenses. There might be bits of pieces you're doing to your club in terms of painting, decorating, uplifts. What were you doing in the sort of on the pitches, various bits and pieces around sort of utilities, etc. And actually, you might have an expense that could go to one of your partners if they are the right partner. And actually, in return, you know, they might be sort of cutting the costs for you and helping you achieve sort of various objectives with what you want to do at the club by becoming that partner and telling that story. And the final one is just kind of local programs. At England Rugby, we have a grassroots program network to help with various different bits and pieces, be it participation or supporting community clubs, various bits and pieces. Are you running similar local programs or kids programs, etc., that could be good for a partner to support and get involved in, and the real passion points for them? So that's just a bit of a list of identifying the assets that you might have available to you. And then it's that identification of potential partners once you know what you've got to offer a partner. So kind of understood this already, and the poll was great in just identifying what you might have. But to summarize, it's very much that word of mouth and those recommendations or that existing network that you have. You might not necessarily have the time to do the cold calling, which is very much understood. So how can your volunteers, how can your players, how can sort of members of the club help you with introductions? And actually a warm introduction is going to go much further than some sort of cold calling, etc. What do your members need from a supporting information perspective? Is there elements that you can pass on to them just to help them sort of do the initial sell, for want of a better phrase? And also, is there sort of a bit of background due diligence, just making sure that the partners you are speaking to are people you would like to have on match day and hospitality? They are people that you'd like to have that association with your club. Understanding of their objectives. So when we speak to brands at the RFU, we speak to them through three lenses. And again, great to see some of these identified a bit earlier. But the first one is that brand piece. Speaking to a partner around what they'd like to do from a brand awareness piece. There's a brand status, brand perception being, you know, for example, that point around community, and brands wanting to be seen involved in the community. And there's a sort of impression that that brand can gain from being a partner of yours. And that's with why people partner with England Rugby, a non-profit organisation, and that sort of power that we have to sort of drive change in the community. The second piece is that business point of, you know, is there a business opportunity either with you at the club, or actually is there a business opportunity by the members of your club they are going to meet? And clearly there might not be any guarantees that you can offer, but you are putting these people in a room where hopefully they can drive new leads, etc. And then that third piece is just employee engagement. Some of the brands that we have as partners very much see that opportunity of being with England Rugby as how can they reward their employees to come along to matches or get behind the scenes, look at life, etc. And again, this is ever more important in the world we live in with sort of employee retention, and a great way of driving depth to your partnership and your relationship. And then the final piece is almost just understanding, what does success look like for the brand? You know, if they were to partner and fast forward 2 years, what does that look like? So you've got a clear understanding of how they're going to measure the partnership. We then look at tailoring the proposal. This is almost a combination of what do you have in sort of step one, and then understanding what the brand's objectives are in step three, and what kind of story you can tell. Clearly, data is ever important in sort of justifying spends and all that sort of stuff. But actually, a lot of decisions are made with emotion, and your gut feeling is driven with emotion. So we very much try and tell our partnership story through the lens of storytelling. Then there are just bits and pieces that you're going to have to sort of nail down. What does a partnership cost? What is the cost of sale to you? Clearly, if you're buying hospitality tickets and giving them to a partner, you've got to pay for those yourself and then pass those costs on. So just understanding how the costs are going to fall and what's the value and what are you asking for in terms of those prices, and understanding where you get to. Things like length of partnership, how long you're trying to tie people in for, just to have that good understanding of what's going to work for you. And that final piece is just the contracting and onboarding. I guess throughout this entire process, your first interaction with the brand all the way through to them becoming a partner and beyond is that relationship management and understanding how you can then onboard them in the best possible fashion. And what does that contracting process look like? How can legal and financial setup help you with this to ensure that everyone's clear on the next steps, terms of payment, et cetera, et cetera. And then, how is this partnership going to be delivered? Hopefully nothing too onerous, but understanding who's responsible for what and giving that partner, hopefully the warm fuzzy feeling that this is very much in hand and they're going to be well looked after as one of your brands, as one of your partners, and hopefully for a very fruitful relationship. So that's a reasonably quick canter through the 5 steps that we kind of look at in broad terms, and hopefully there's some relatable points there for the community clubs all the way up to what we do at the RFU.
Thanks, Will. That's fantastic. And I hope for you guys that was an interesting insight really into how it's done from an RFU perspective. But as Will's alluded to right the way through that, you can dial up and dial down, and you might think, yeah, but that's okay. Yeah, it's England rugby we're talking about here, but actually there are lots of principles which clearly can work across all levels of the game. So thinking about all levels of the game, what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk you through an approach from a club at level 9. So I'll share some slides with you, so bear with me 1 second while I do that. Okay. A little bit clunky, but hopefully you can see that. Well, I can see you on screen, so are we good on there on the slides? Lovely, thank you. So we're going to bring it a little bit closer to home, as I mentioned, and we're going to talk about a club, Barton under Needwood, playing Midlands 4 West in the north section, or did. I'm not sure where they're up to now with their league structure. And unfortunately, David Viles, who is the vice chair, can't join us tonight. David has put these slides together and he's done a great job, and I'm going to share their story. And as I say, he can't be, he's away on business, but basically this is something that these guys have done. So I'll talk you through just what they've been up to, and some of this stuff I think will resonate quite strongly with you, and hopefully again you'll pick up some tips and ideas. So they started with a goal. They had a project around clubhouse and grounds, and they had a new board, a bunch of new guys and girls come onto the exec, and they had some ambitions of where they wanted to go and what they wanted to sort of grow. And one of this was clubhouse and grounds, and they thought, right, okay, we've got £150,000 to raise. How on earth are we going to do that? So they have this very, very clear vision of what they want to do. They, through collective thinking, agreed a plan. And they said, right, okay, how much can we start to sort of get from different areas, and sponsorship being perhaps one of the largest areas. But as you can see there, they've got a number of different elements which are helping contribute towards where this money is coming from for them. But the sponsorship, as you can see, as £12,000 target was, probably the third highest element there after grants and donations and so on. So quite a strong focus for them, but a very, very hefty target for them to aim for. And so what they did is they focused on a number of different sponsors and partners, and they created a target list of 50 partners, and they prospected them to talk about who they were and what their ambitions were. And they found that they were amazed by how many people wanted to help. They produced a booklet, a PDF booklet. They actually printed some of these out, which just talked about helping them, helping partners achieve our ambitions, and going back to that point about giving someone a purpose to be involved with the club. So they give a lovely overview of who they were, they gave an overview of what they needed, and they also then talked about what would be in the booklet. And within the booklet, as you might expect, were a number of different packages. So they created some really clear and professional looking packages, and they offered return investment tiers and made them really easy to see. And they've used little icons. They've said how many are available. They've said what the 1 year, 2 year deal is. So it was very, very, very simple. Anybody could see this. It looked super, it looked professional, it looked clean, and the clubs could dip in and out because, as you can see, you've got platinum, you've got gold, and obviously the platinum was sold out. But you've got silver, you've got bronze, and something that they talked about was having a little bit of exclusivity by offering limited spaces. It sounds a little sort of perhaps like you wouldn't necessarily do that, but they found that by doing that, people wanted, oh right, okay, there's only one, yes, let's look to have that. And they also then had a range of options further down. So they had affordable packages right the way down. As you can see there, a 1 year deal on a match ball sponsor was £200. And they talked again what that was and who it was and all the clear dates, all the clear fixtures and so on. So they had these packages really, really simple. And then David, or a member of the team, was always available and welcoming at all times. That's something that they really wanted to make sure that they did in terms of anybody who might have a contact, anybody who might have an interest. As soon as they're in touch, then David or someone from the team would be there and be able to deal with the people straight away. Okay, so I can see there's a couple of comments in the chat. And sorry, they've been answered. Yes, sorry. Thanks, Sally. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into a second poll. I'm going to try and get this poll right. So apologies for the first one. So Sally, I'll hand over to you to introduce the poll, and then I will try and do the right poll this time.
Brilliant, thanks Martin. So this next poll is thinking about what does your club do? So if we want to share that now, so we can start getting our answers in.
Okay. And I'm just going to
just launch that.
This one is, okay, what does your club do now? I'm just making sure I've got the right one. Yeah, and I'm going to launch that now.
Brilliant. So this again, you can answer multiple choice. We've got when selling your club to potential sponsors, which of the following does your club do? So use a sponsorship booklet, share the makeup of your members with sponsors, reviews at various touch points the public may see, use sponsorship agreements, none of the above, unsure, other. So if you do have anything other, please do add that to the chat so we can refer back to it as well. So just coming up to halfway, Martin, with those answers coming in. So David's just put in the chat, take anything from anyone, just started to work on strategy.
Okay. Any more? I'm going to close that poll now, and then I'll share. Oh, no, there's another one just coming then.
Should 2 more come in just as you're about to close it?
Yeah, yeah. There's 9 in.
David put on there as well, copy hoppers.
Excellent. Okay, I'll end that poll now, and then I'll share those results with you. So there you can see a variety, but the highest one is sharing the makeup of your members with sponsors. So really important that you're doing that, which is great to see. You've used in sponsorship booklet, sponsorship arrangements, you do that, which is great. You've got various touch points so the public see how the public may see the sponsor, which is superb. There's some of you put none of the above. Okay, so an interesting one just to think about. And then in terms of the other, I think Sally's touched on those. So I think those results have gone through, and you can see them on the screen. And I'll stop sharing those now. Okay. So, carrying on with the guys from Burton. So in terms of what partners can expect in return from the club, and this comes down to what you can actually put together. Obviously, we've put there a picture of England, and what we're referring to is international tickets. Clubs have different levels of allocation. Can you use some of your allocation to entice sponsors? Sponsor events and also hosting sponsor opportunities. So can you have specific sponsor events? Do you hold specific sponsor events? Do you have opportunities for them to come together, perhaps not in a formal dining area, but maybe as a business opportunity? And Richard will talk about that later on. Can you give them club discounts on the bar sales, or even ground entry if your club is at a high level and your people are paying to come in? You know, do your partners all have sort of access to that? It'll support their corporate social responsibility. You hear that phrase, the acronym CSR, and again, you know, that's what many clubs get involved with, to make sure that they're working with the community and helping out within the community. And then of course you've got again, depending on the level your club's at, but you know, player and staff interaction. So again, if you're higher up there and you've got some sort of players who you know, will have a value associated with them, then obviously by all means do get involved. And then in terms of other benefits as well, clearly you've got local media exposure there. You've got the facilities where they can use and capitalize on, whether they be your pitches or your clubhouse. You've got all the various social media channels that you have, and I've listed the different types there. Signed shirts, framed shirts in an office, obviously always well received and great. A massive asset for you is your website. I'll put the Rugby one there, but a key point is having your partners on your website and links into their various websites for themselves. And then of course your newsletters and speaking to your members, which again is a huge one and something that your partners would hope that they can do, because they want to be able to engage with that broader reach around your club, whether they be age grade players or adult and senior players and so on. And so what they do is, once they've done that and they get a partner on board, they absolutely celebrate it, and they're always there to push and promote. They use their social media channels where they can. They'll brand it wherever they can. But the key thing here is that anybody who comes on board, they see them as part of the team, part of one team, and they bring them on and get them involved and celebrate it through their various social platforms. What did the club get in return? Well, clearly, you know, the club will get money. There's always a key point, and more often than not, it's the money we want. But let's not forget that there are other areas as well, and that could be things such as intellectual expertise. You could have maybe accountancy support or legal advice, or you know, you can have an array of people within other fields such as marketing or social media and so on, who may be able to help the club. You could have people who've got that material expertise, so building support, maybe planning and design and physical materials. Discounted offers for your members, so giving out you know, reduced gym memberships, or you know, reduced membership, reduced costs at a restaurant, or things where you can spare that message with your members and they can all go and actually enjoy that. And then if you're fortunate enough to have people who've got activities and adventure type experiences and so on, then again, sort of thing where you could take that in return for some sponsorship, but it means a massive amount to your club members that you can share those things with them. So there's a whole host of things that the club can get. It's not just a case of cash. And finally, this is David's advice here. He says, be a hedgehog, not a fox. He says, stay focused on your goal. Don't allow anyone to distract you from your goal. Get everyone at your club behind it. Be unwavering at all times and shout about it when you succeed. So the guys there have done a great job. They've raised over £12,000 in sponsorship in 12 months, and they are still working hard on it. And you know, you've seen the different packages that they have. I've not got the latest of where they're up to with all the packages if they're sold out, but they are moving obviously onto the new season now. So most of the things they will have done will have moved on. So that's a level 9 club. And now what we're going to do is we are going to hand over to Richard Ellis, who's from ex-COO of Preston Grasshoppers. And so, Richard, I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to you so you can carry on. And Richard, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good, Richard.
Yeah, and can you see the first slide? There. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, yes, so my name's Richard Ellis, and I was the general manager at Preston Grasshoppers for 10 years, and I now do some independent consulting work for the RFU, going into other rugby clubs. It's great to see one of them here tonight. Hello, David from Concert. And so I was just asked to talk about an initiative that we did at Preston Grasshoppers as a case study. And it was really a tool to engage and retain sponsorship partners. I'm going to use an example that we developed called Hoppers Business Network. I'll go through how it started, how it works, what are the benefits for all parties, how it can be developed, and some advice for those who'd like to start their own. So when I first started in my role at Hoppers, I was keen to ensure that sponsors got something back from the club, and it became more of a two-way partnership. I think, as we've shown in the polls earlier, that particularly at community club level, it's fair to say that sponsors are not expecting a lot back. They're doing it for altruistic reasons. They could be ex-players, mini junior parents with a connection to the club. They're looking to contribute and put something back into the club. But that isn't to say they shouldn't get anything back. And it doesn't mean that you should limit yourselves to those connections. And I was lucky that I got, not sure my slides are moving on. Just bear with me a second. Yeah. I was lucky in that I got 4 key sponsors at the club that helped me off with this initiative. And it's not, you don't necessarily need that, but they were ex-players, a couple of committee guys, and they were keen to do something. So we got our heads together and we cooked up this plan. So they were founding partners. I say that's optional. We branded it. So we used the Preston Grasshoppers name, Hoppers. We used a part of the logo. We gave it a little strap line, and we made it try and be part of the club, but identified as slightly separate as well. Any sponsor, whatever size, automatically member. There's no membership fee, and in fact, you can extend it beyond existing partners and sponsors. And what we did was arrange a range of events at different times in the day, spread through the seasons. The first events were literally each of the founding companies inviting one other company along to sit in a room, introduce each other, have a bacon butty and a coffee and a chat. We then developed the idea into a wider invitation base. And we also gave sponsors the opportunity themselves to present or exhibit. And so here's a couple of examples of events that we started to put on. The business network budget breakfast is of course an easy one. If you've got a tame accountant as part of your network, I'm sure he'd love to speak a couple of days after the budget about what's new, particularly for businesses, but also on personal finances. We always hosted it at the club, at the rugby club. And this is your chance to show off your rugby club. Polish your rugby club, make it tidy, make it neat. Invite everyone and follow that up. So don't just send one invite out, make sure you repeat that invite. As I say, it's your chance to invite unrelated companies or ones you wish to target. So we talked about cold calling and how soul destroying that can be. This is an easy thing, just invite them along. It's a free bacon butty and a cup of coffee, chance to network with other people. As I say, light refreshments, keep it simple, don't do anything fancy. Make it fairly professional, get name badges, get an attendance list, and maybe even do an attendance certificate. We had one company asking for a certificate because they were putting it down on their CPD. Make the meetings fun. Make them fairly relaxed, fairly informal. Keep them short at the beginning or end of the day, which is better for businesses. They can get along, get to a breakfast meeting, and then get on with the rest of their day. But do have a structure. Make sure there's time for people to stand or sit and chat and talk with each other. But also, as I say, make them fun. We had local car dealership, for instance, came along, brought demonstrators. We got our sponsors our suppliers involved. So we got our fruit and veg supplier, our pie supplier, our butcher to come along and do the food. So the food cost us nothing. They set up little stalls. This celebration of food and drink event, everything supplied by our sponsors, by our suppliers. So they did everything, and it literally was come along and try the cheese from the local cheese merchant. We got the brewery to come down and put a barrel on. So make them fun, make them interesting. And then we did, we also evolved them further into a business network session on the first Friday afternoon of our beer festival. And it just snowballed. That one just became so popular, and we even started charging people to come in. So you actually generate some money out of that. So what are the benefits? What are the benefits to the sponsor or partner? They can raise their company profile in the local business community. They will begin to feel valued and part of the club. It's an opportunity to network with other companies, and they can have fun and relax in a rugby club. Make sure that you've got people there from the club who are briefed, who are ambassadors for the club, who can also get around and chat to the guests, and maybe invite some of your players or coaches along too. And what are the benefits for you as a club? You're going to cement that partnership. You can upsell and cross-sell. So you can move people up, get them to, they've got a perimeter board. Would you like to take some hospitality at a match? Would you like to sponsor a game? It's that real opportunity for you to be in the room with those guys. And create a buzz about your club. You can, as Martin talked about the social media with the other club there, create an aura or create something that there's something going on at the rugby club that you as a business need to be part of. And you can, of course, increase the pool of potential sponsors. You ask your sponsors and partners to invite their guests. You target people that you want to come along. Get it out there to your mini junior parents who all might have businesses or might be involved in businesses. There's plenty of opportunities. So don't make it exclusive. Get as many people in as you can. And it's low cost, and it's relatively easy to organize. We did probably 4 to 6 a season. So we didn't do over the top, didn't do a massive amount. Got to be careful. You've got to have people to actually organize the events, but keep doing it. Let's skip to slide. No. How can it develop? You can make it one of the go-to networking events within your local community. So in Preston, there were a number of those that were in the middle of town, and we made it so that people wanted to come out and come to the rugby club, and we could showcase ourselves. This was our website. This is part of the website. So down here, we created a directory. So you click on these under different categories and see any architect or any bank or whatever who are associated with the club. We also tried using it as a recruitment directory, both for ourselves, but also for the companies involved. So any companies looking to recruit, use the business network. We can put it out on our newsletter that somebody is trying to recruit, or there's vacancies available. We promote each event through social media, much as Martin described the previous club. So each event is promoted by social media. In our newsletter, the invitation uses Eventbrite so that you get the replies back, and also encourage sponsors and contributors to do that as well within their own social networking networks, so they can retweet or put it on, especially if one of those is the presenter for the day. Another option you could use is a match day. We selected a feature, I think it was January, we didn't have a main match sponsor, so right, a sponsors lounge, invite everyone to a limit. You can invite yourself plus a partner. We've got 40 spaces available, put on a buffet, but don't do a free bar. Don't give the money away. They'd be more than happy to buy drinks. And again, get in there, talk to your guests, and you've looked after them. So just some top tips. As I say, just do it and keep doing it. Keep it simple and keep doing it. So after the first one, it will start to build momentum. Keep doing it season after season. Create that aura, create that thing. Make it open to all. Extend, it's your opportunity to extend and invite other companies that have never had anything to do with the club. Showcase your club. It's a USP of rugby. We are renowned for our hospitality, and this is how you do it, and this is how you show it. Make the club welcoming, make sure it's clean, tidy, use assets to advertise what you've got on offer, and do the follow-up. Of course, if you're creating leads or you're getting a list of attendees, get them onto your database, get them invited to the next event. This was an example of Gainsborough Flooring, who sponsored our gin marquee at our beer festival, and this was their press release saying it was one of the county's most popular events for the summer. It was the beer festival, so they used it within their own marketing and used imagery from events that they'd done at the rugby club. So the initiative turned out to be really successful, but easy and a cost-effective way of connecting with your sponsors and turning them into true partnerships. I know that businesses have linked up and worked together, and I know that I've upsold companies from being guests at another sponsor's table and at our HBN events, through to taking a perimeter board, then taking match day hospitality. And I know that next season they're looking to sponsor one of the first team games. So just go for it. You're on mute, Martin.
Thanks, Richard. Sorry, I was engrossed in it. So thank you so much. So lots of food for thought there, guys. We've got a Q&A at the end, so obviously you'll have an opportunity to talk to Richard and also Will and myself and ask questions. So what we'll do, we'll move through onto the next set of slides. So bear with me while I just open that up for you. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'll now take you through some just considerations for you. Lots of things we've talked about tonight, a little bit of sort of repeat, but also really reinforce, I think is the key message here. So these are sort of points that we want you to think about, maybe for you to check what you're doing at your club and maybe what you could do if you're not already doing it. So getting started, I think one of the key things we've learned is having a planning and task group. If you can, try and spread that load, not just one person. I know how difficult it is with volunteers, but perhaps if you do it as a special one-off with clubs, then maybe people just will want to get involved. And I know that sounds a little bit sort of flippant to say that, but often you say, well, do I have to do this every week? No, you don't, but let's all get stuck behind this and include players within that. My own club, local club here in Gloucestershire, Level 9, we're always trying to include the players in everything we do, purely so they understand that all the hard work that goes behind to help them sort of play out on a weekend and so on. So try and incorporate or try and pull together a planning and task group. As we've said throughout, try and establish what you have to offer, the cost to any club and the selling price, considerations on your length of term of partnership, and also can you create any value in kind packages, what you might need. For example, do you need some coach travel? Is there a local coach company who might give you a reduced price? IT solutions, Wi-Fi, groundworks, HR solicitors, different product pieces, and so on, and the list goes on. Create a database. We've all touched upon that, and I think that was one of the points at the beginning of that, collecting data of why sponsors want to be involved and partners want to be involved, but also for you to ensure that you know who is involved, what sort of partner they are, what sort of revenue levels they are, how long they've been with you. And one of the key reasons for that is from a succession planning point of view, particularly with your club, making sure if someone does pick it up or you run with it for 1 year, then someone takes that role on, then they've got that information at the fingertips. And plan your time. Often not only budgets are set in October, it depends on the financial year. The majority run April to March. Some smaller companies will probably start budget planning in around January, but as we know, sometimes in March you've had it, and I've been at my club where, you know, we've sort of said, oh, there's a sponsor whose accountant is telling them they need to spend some money. So don't be afraid to sort of plan that in and just keep that linked in. So what we'll do now is we'll go for another poll. So I'll hand over to Sally so she can introduce that for you.
Brilliant, thanks Martin. So third poll for this evening is, does your club offer value in kind partnerships? So if we just launch that now, Martin.
There we go.
Brilliant. So yes, no, or unsure. So if we can just put those answers in now. David's put yes as well on that chat. I think you've got most of the answers in now, Martin.
Okay, I'll end that poll then, Sally, and I'll share those results with you. Okay, so you guys hopefully can see that. So we have a mixture really. Some of you are not sure. Some of you said yes, and I think as Sally said, if you've got any examples of what you have done, pop those in the chat. So the 4 of you said yes, we do some value in kind, anything that people can think of. And those who've not, then certainly an area to explore, because sometimes that's an easier way to bring in a value to the club, not rather than just a hard cash. And so that there are lots of different ways that you can have, you know, all the different services that you need to help run your club. And I'd like to think that out there'll be people who may want maybe not just pure cash, or maybe a cash and value in kind type of deal. I think that's something for you to consider. Okay, cool. So I'll stop sharing those and I'll continue on. So in terms of identifying and attracting sponsors, one of the things I think is important is try and make sure, you know, you guys behave like a peer, not a beggar. Sometimes you can feel a little bit as if you know, you are begging, but no, you're not. It's a very powerful tool. It has a relevance and a meaning no other marketing media has. And make sure you're targeting well-matched brands to you as a club and who have the values. And we all know the values that clubs have, the rugby values that are important to us. I'm sure that businesses who have similar values would want to be part of that relationship. Local research, again, teaching grammar, that's the kegs here, but you know, create a big list of all the targets, all the sizes, and if you can, try and do some research in and around anyone from their web, in terms of, do they have a corporate social responsibility around health or sport? You might find that some of the businesses have a statement on their website, which you can look into, and it just gives you a way into talking about that and how your game is providing a phenomenal support for the local community. Existing sponsors and partners, as Richard's alluded to there, you know, clearly bringing people to events and so on, bringing them to games, it's a no-brainer. Existing members, successful introductions, possibly create a reward scheme. If someone brings in a new partner for you, you know, do they get a free jug of beer? Do they get tickets to a game? You choose, but is it worth considering? LinkedIn. And we'll come up, there's a poll coming on that, as you might imagine. So LinkedIn, target companies, create a quality account, and basically, you know, what you can do on that is you ask your members to link in and share posts. And when you consider that LinkedIn is predominantly in and around a business type of environment, it's a great tool for you to use. Legwork, try and establish as much as you can about those potential sponsors. So review their websites and also review their social platforms and add to their database. So we're going to jump in. Sorry, I'm just going to one more slide on selling your club. So creating a presentation. We touched on Barton's slides earlier, and you could see what they did. Now, you don't have to have anything amazing in terms of professional booklet, but if you can, that's great. I know there's a cost associated with it, but it's not difficult to create something using PowerPoint or other tools if you've got other products, and which you can turn into a printed piece, or you can email it, and it shows you understand their business. It shows the market objectives because you can tailor it as you do it. You can include testimonials from similar business or similar size businesses, but create a presentation, and if you can turn it into something that can be printed and handed out, that's great, but if not, keep it digital. Foster that one club ethos with your partners and really make sure that that's reinforced all the time, and how they are an integral part of the club. They feel valued. And I think, going to Richard's point on the business network, it's very clear to me how those partners were feeling the value of knowing that they could talk to other companies and they will pick up business, they'll pick up contacts and so on. So that one club ethos is crucial. Understanding your membership and how a company can benefit by an access to your memberships. And what I mean by that is, obviously, don't just say we've got 300 members, but can you break that down? Do you have a 40% male female split? Do you have age groupings? Can you give the company a clear target audience? We have 300 members at our age grade who all bring their children. They all drive cars. They've got sort of different types of disposable income. Can you try and collate some information that you can sell a tangible sort of relatable piece to those sponsors and partners? Sell the wider impact to your club. We've touched on that earlier in terms of how it works with the community. It's a force for the good. I mentioned the range of teams you have. If you've got mixed ability, if you've got women and girls and so on, talk to them about your diverse and how inclusive you are, and also how perhaps a partner might leverage that connection. And then a crucial thing really is take a sponsor's journey, and I'd encourage you to do this if you've not done this, through the eyes of a trusted sponsor. So maybe a critical friend who you'd say, okay, just have a little look at what we do and tell us what you think. It's been quite open, but it is something which is worth doing, because they will give you a real honest approach to you and make the changes. Sometimes if you just look at it with your own eyes or from a club's eyes, then you might not see it in their view. So make sure you do that from time to time. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'll hand over to Sally, and we're going to do our fourth poll, and over to you, Sally.
Thanks, Martin. So me again. I think we have answered this one already, but we're going to answer it again anyway. But does your club have and use a LinkedIn account, and does it use it to promote sponsors and partners? So if we launch that now, Martin.
Okay, I'm just going to close that down. Oh, wait a second.
Thank you.
Relaunch poll. Okay.
And David, just some of the answers for you. So if you want to pop it into the chat for us. So it's yes, club has an account and uses it for this purpose. Yes, club has an account but doesn't use it for the purpose. Club doesn't have an account, or unsure. So we've got those coming in really quick now, which is fabulous. We can actually end that as well, Martin. Everyone's got their answers in, and David's come back with no account at the moment.
Okay, so there we go. So we've got one of you who's using that, and then 8 of you who don't have an account. So something to think about and how you can potentially use that. And as we've said, we're going to share the slides. So as a little aid memoir, then you guys can have that. I'm going to move through quite quickly because I'm conscious of time. I know we started a little bit later, but we will move on. So thanks for that. And next, so just a few things now in terms of managing the relationship. This is in terms of, confirmation of the agreement, how you close the deal. Do you have a formal agreement? Is it just a handshake? One for you to think about. And then something which I think is certainly worthwhile considering is that relationship piece of any objections. Why companies say no, and if companies do say no, ask them and see if you can understand any common themes or links. Is it the timing? Is it the package? Is it something else? But don't be afraid to ask that question, and hopefully that they can tell you, so you can try and tailor it and learn from that. One thing we'd encourage is sponsorship a key agenda for your committee meetings or your exec meetings. We'd encourage you to do that because it's such a significant part of your income. How you might identify any issues with partners, do it early, plan and rectify it. So make sure that there is nothing that's going to sort of potentially jeopardize a renewal conversation. So really make sure that you're talking through to your partners at all times. And also, again, something Richard talks about is upselling, is whether or not your partners can increase their involvement over time. They may have had a board, but maybe really value the club and would like to be involved in maybe an age grade team, or sponsor a first team game or something like that. But basically, keep talking to the partners about ways they can potentially move forward with you as well. Okay, and so then just finally, your role in making the partnership sort of work. So have that club link. It's great to have one individual. I know I talked about a group, and you can have a group, but have that one individual who can really help foster that one club spirit. Try and give them regular updates on where you are and what you're up to, how the season's going, how they're doing, share the successes, as we mentioned. Think about your physical branding, check your club and grounds. How's it looking? Is it a bit tired? Do your boards need replacing? Has that poster sort of gone? Website, and ensure your company logos, and there's a short bio and the links are there and work. Number of club websites I go on myself and I'll click on a link and it doesn't really work. So just make sure that that's always there. Social media, develop that content and contact plan, making sure you've got thank you messages and really celebrating your partners and your sponsors, and as I said, celebrating their successes. Invitations to existing club socials, your summer balls, your beer festivals, your winter balls, whatever they may be, but make sure those guys are there and they're made to feel welcome, and bring their families. It's something that you can share those tickets quite easily. International tickets, hot topic in many clubs, but can you set aside for certain games? And there's certain ones that you can have when you've got the 3 Six Nations games. Is that an opportunity for you to consider what you do with your partners? Frame team photos with a partner, they'll put that in their office hopefully, and therefore it's even further advertising. It may be in their shop, it may be wherever it is, but it's a great piece. Who doesn't like that as a gift? I think partners will absolutely value it and therefore want to display it and show off. And that includes the frame team photos, frame team shirts. It's the same principle for both. And then the final thing I was just going to mention there in terms of selling your role is make sure that you've got that reduced rate for clubhouse and grounds and meetings. You've got a fantastic space, a fantastic asset. Make sure that they know that they can use that. On my own club, we're often using it out with our partners for their own social gatherings or even business meetings and so on. And so we've got a question to finish here, and this is just using the chat function. So tell us what your club does to retain sponsors year on year. So Sally, I'll let you hand to see what's coming through in the chat there.
Just waiting for things to come through at the moment, Martin. Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Oh, it's starting to come through.
Yes, we've got we have a pre-season sponsors lunch every year, sponsors day lunch at networking. Thanks, Paul and David. Use personal contacts to keep them paying. Not really a strategic approach. Chris. David, we're just starting out on finding sponsors. people, simply great communication, checking what they're looking for, review at season end to check that they have achieved this, looked at upsell, etc. It's great. And keep them informed on performance, invite them to lunches and events. Annual review of relationship. What do we do well? What can we do better? Do we have sponsors match day per season? Do have a sponsors match day per season. And I think that's it for, oh, we've just had one more come through. So we have improved our social media appreciation of sponsor. So anything else that comes through, please keep adding it to the chat, and I'll hand back to Martin.
Thanks, Sally, and thanks everybody. There's some great points in there. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to share with you a very simple 6-point plan. You saw Will's 5-point sort of strategy, but this is a similar sort of theme, and this is something that we've stolen. It was David, I think you may have seen this one. It was stolen from the guys up at Newcastle Falcons. They let us steal it, but it's a very, very simple plan on a page, and I think that's always the easiest thing to have in mind. There's lots of ideas and lots of thoughts shared with you tonight, but as you can see, there's some great advice, and it's talking about partnership not being it's a partnership, not sponsorship, sorry. Obviously searching local to begin with, really trying to understand your partner. You're much bigger than logos and branding. There is more into it than that. Don't just focus on the pounds. The value in kind piece, as we've said, is a real important one to consider. And then, as we all know, it's easier to renew than find new. So certainly, some of the things that you guys have done there in terms of your events, you just mentioned in the chat, there's some great ideas and so on. So there's a simple 6-stage plan, and there's more details within there. So what we'll do, guys, is conscious of time. It's gone a little bit over. From a resource and Q&A perspective, what we'll do now is I'm just going to share with you, there's a few resources that will have links. So when we send the slides to you, there's hyperlinks behind this, so you can see some sponsorship agreements. There's a template one on the England Rugby website. There's a number of videos on the England Rugby YouTube channel, which you can have a look at, lots of little short, sharp ones. Sport England, you can join Sport England. They have something called Club Matters. They have a range of resources and webinars, and there's a link into there. And actually, some of you have websites with Pitch Hero, but actually they've got a very simple little guide that you can log on to and find. Even if you don't have a Pitch Hero account, you can just use an email and register for it. So there's a number of different resources out there. So conscious of time, if we just sort of give a few minutes now for a Q&A, I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll give ourselves 5 minutes. If there's any burning questions, and we'll run through till 8:30, pop them in the chat. Sally, if you can pop them out, and anybody who says anything. But guys, if you need to disappear at this point, obviously please do. But if you've got any questions from anything you've seen tonight, pop them into the chat. We'll do our best to try and answer them over the next few minutes. And if we can't, just keep typing them into the chat. And what we will do is we'll take them away and we'll answer them afterwards.
On mute then, talking away. Just before you do disappear off, thanks again for joining us. I've just popped a link in the chat. If you could offer any sort of feedback from tonight, especially with it being a test event with us using a different platform, we would really appreciate it. So that link is in the chat for you now to access. So we've just had a question there from David. Does anyone use Snap, and is it worthwhile cost to incur? I've personally not heard of it. I'm not sure if anybody else has.
I think if you have, guys, I think it'd be helpful if you raise your hand using the reactions So the reactions at the bottom of the screen, if you raise your hand, and then we can unmute you. Try and answer David's question. I'm aware of it, David. I've not. There's a couple of clubs I think who have used it. I think there's a club up in Scotland who use it. But if there's anybody local, then I think that's something for us to find. And what we'll do, David, in the background as well, is we'll ask a few colleagues and see if anybody else does, and answer that question for you. It's an organisation who have done presentations for us before, but certainly they are out there and they do work and so on. But in terms of being able to answer your question directly, unless there's anybody who's got experience of that, we'll have to try and get that answer to you later. So if you fill in those SurveyMonkey guys, and also any further chats, I'll stay on, and we'll stay on until you guys disappear off, just in case there are any questions or any burning questions. I know I said we'll have a hard deadline of 8:30. I'm just conscious on this beautiful evening that you want some of your time back. And whilst we're waiting for that, just can I thank Will and Richard and Sally for helping us host tonight. As Sally said at the beginning, it's the first time we've done this type of event where we've had a type of a conference. Virtual conference is the best way of describing it. So it's new to us, and there's a little bit of technology lessons that we need to learn, but hopefully you found it interesting, and also having the keynote earlier on.
Jane's just made a great point there, Martin, as well, about using those clubs like Barton are great examples, with majority of people within the community game being volunteers. Just something for you, Jane. I'm not sure what area of the country you are or what club you're representing, but it might be worth reaching out to your club developer on this, because I'm sure they've got other good practice sort of options that they can go through that other clubs have had really good success with, and they may be able to connect you as well with different clubs across the country that have had some really good successful sponsorship stories. I'm not sure what club you are, like I said, that are, similar playing level, but it might be worth reaching out to them, and then we can connect you going forward.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for joining us this evening, by the way. Thanks, that's Sally. Sorry, we just
Hi, Ian. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Trotty. Thanks, Paul.
Just going to stop the recording as well now, Martin.